Alrighty, hi. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Jessy, and I'm here to talk about being a doula.
Ooh, that's interesting. What does your job do? Like, what does it entail?
So being a doula is a support professional for families during times of transition.
Okay.
That's the general definition.
So what exactly does a doula do?
A doula is there to help with comfort measures for families, and there are many different types of doulas. Not everyone is aware of all the different types of what a doula can be. A lot of people think about a doula and they think about someone who assists with a birth. And it's not just that. It's assisting families in times of transition. So what that means is that means birth, that means postpartum, getting used to a new family dynamic. That can mean working with end-of-life care as well. So end-of-life and death doulas, and I happen to be certified on all sides of these transitional periods.
That's very interesting. Where did you get your education to be a doula?
So for the birth and postpartum side, that sort of starting out beginning of life time frame, I went through Childbirth International. And there's a lot of different organizations that provide certifications for that time frame for doulas. A lot of them are virtual, some of them are in person, but you kind of have to go through and do your research on them.
Okay.
I chose CBI because CBI is very upfront about giving you comparisons to their organization and all of the other organizations as to what the pros and cons are. And I like that transparency.
That's actually very interesting that you say that. Do you know what skill set is required to be a doula?
You have to be able to have great communication and be able to advocate and respect boundaries.
If you were to like throughout all the women, like what is like a boundary that is like mostly set with them?
Well, you want to make sure when you're providing comfort measures, you want to know what someone's boundaries are physically, whether they are open to any sort of comforting touch, whether they're not. There's also overlapping requirements for state-wise and certification-wise that you can and can't do. So, for example, you wouldn't be able to give somebody a massage to help them be comfortable if you're not a licensed massage therapist. And you want to know what your client's boundaries are. For example, my most recent client was actually a hospice client, end-of-life client, and the sole purpose of my support measures for them and their family was to help them trim their nails. It wasn't something that their family members were comfortable with doing, and they couldn't do it themselves. So I would go in and I would talk to them, I would keep them company, and I would trim their nails. And that's what I did for that family until she passed.
That is so sweet. That actually, that warms my heart. What made you to decide to become a doula?
So I honestly wasn't looking at it as a career path for myself. I've always been very driven to the hospice and geriatric side of care. And a friend of mine was actually very, very driven towards maternity. And she was going for her doula, her birth doula certification at the time in which I got pregnant. And so I was one of her clients to help her get her certification. And she got her certification and was kind of struggling on the business side. I happen to have my bachelor's degree in business. So I went, let me look into this doula profession more. And I realized that there's end-of-life and death doula work, and we kind of came together and made a collaborative partnership, LLC, to create our doula business. Now, I will say something about doulas is that you don't have to have a college level of education to become a doula. You can get your certification and you can work with a mentor. Some doulas are culturally trained and they do not ever go for official certifications. They are trained through their culture and their family members, and they are a doula in their own right, and that is a perfectly fine way to be a doula, is through experience, right, and having a mentor. So I just kind of fell into it because a friend of mine who needed help on the business aspect was already doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So what is the difference between like a doula and a midwife?
So there's big differences there, but they often get confused, right? So a doula is a non-medical support professional. We do not have any, unless you have continuing education as a medical professional, you don't have any medical training as a doula. Above and beyond something like a CPR and first aid, especially CPR, first aid pediatric level is definitely recommended, right? If you're working with a brand new family, you probably want to have that certification. Beyond that though, a midwife is comparable to an obstetrician, but their training is different. They're more focused on holistic or naturopathic way of approaching and managing pregnancy and birth than your standard obstetrician gynecologist will be. They often work within birth centers, but it doesn't mean that they don't have rights within hospitals to support deliveries. Doulas, unless you are in an absolutely emergent situation in which that baby is coming right now, you do not catch a baby. It would be more likely for a nurse to catch a baby than a doula to catch a baby.
That is very interesting. I did not know that. So what different roles would a doula do outside of childbirth?
Well, like I said, end of life care, outside of the actual birth itself. Helping with prenatal is a huge thing. There's also doulas that work in fertility to help with families and connect them to resources if they're struggling with infertility. A lot of doulas choose to have different measures that they take for comfort. So for example, I happen to be a Reiki master as well, so that I can provide Reiki as in terms of energy support and comfort on that level. So a lot of doulas choose to go and get continuing education above and beyond what they know as a doula to help with their comfort measures. You may choose to go and take some courses as to how to help with hygiene or how to help with bathing or how to appropriately clip someone's toenails or fingernails without hurting them, things like that. So it's all just basic support. The difference is that you are removed from the level of caregiver. If you're a family member and you're a support within the family, you are so incredibly emotionally connected that sometimes making tough decisions in the moment requires a different degree of knowledge about those situations and a clear head that's not overwhelmed with, oh my goodness, is this person going to be okay? And that's important.
That is so great. So talking about that, what kind of makes your job rewarding?
I just love helping families, honestly. It's rewarding to be able to go back to those families after those transitional periods and see how well they're doing, and knowing that, at least in some small part, I had a hand in helping them to that degree. I love to be able to make people that I work with laugh. Comedy is a big thing for me. Humor especially helps in situations where you're dealing with a lot of grief and the end of life side. If you're a family member or if you're a dying person and you can have one moment to just laugh and not be in the situation that you're in actively, it's extremely helpful. So those are reward things for me.
Are there have you ever stayed in contact with people that you've worked with?
Oh yeah, yep, I definitely have. There's a family that I'm still in contact with to this day, and I check up about their son, and they're amazing. There's another family that we continue to be in contact with. We ended up getting a phone call from them because their collective mom had passed away, and we supported them and their family. And they're all across the country. So many families now are all broken apart in different states, and they're only communicating basically through virtual or, FaceTime and things like that. And what they didn't know is they didn't know how to contact emergency services. Their dad was living alone after their mom had passed, and they were on a video chat with him, and he started to have a medical emergency. But they didn't know how to get him medical assistance because they're not local. So if you call 911 in a different state, you're not going to be able to get 911 in Connecticut.
Right, exactly.
And so something that we started to provide everybody was the local non-emergency phone number, so you can call for emergency services from any other state. So things like that, where clients will come back to us after a couple of years and say, oh my goodness, can you help with this? And then we do. That's just something we like to do.
That is so sweet. I love that so much. How could somebody get involved in this field?
So you want to be able to look at what the education is. You need the knowledge base. So you want to look at where you can go to get certifications. Again, like I said, it's not something that needs to be a college level. You start with the basic knowledge of what a doula is, what tasks do they provide, where can you seek that knowledge. Having a mentor is important. You don't necessarily need one, but it's very helpful to be able to have a mentor, to be able to sit in with trainings and go through and look at circumstances as they occur. Most certification programs require you to have a certain level of experience before giving you the certification. So, for example, if you go for a birth doula certification, you do all of the classwork, the about 6 months of, online. Sometimes certain organizations give it to you for a weekend where you'll go out and you'll do like 2 straight days of intensive classes for that time. But in my experience, the longer the program, the more the content is of that program, the more knowledge you have to hold on to. And then they'll say, okay, now you need to go and attend 2 births, and you need to be able to network with families and be involved with prenatal groups and be out and about on social media in the mom groups and things like that, and be very upfront and forward about, hey, I'm looking to get my certification. I would like to volunteer as a doula to help support you. I have all of my education, I have all my knowledge in hand, and I need to be able to write my report to get my certification. And I got my certification. There were lovely, wonderful families that allowed me to go in and do that work with them so that I could become certified. And that's kind of how you roll and how you get into it.
That's very interesting to know. What do you wish that people knew more about what you do?
Honestly, the biggest thing that so many people are unaware of is the different types of doulas. Like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about doulas being midwives or doulas performing, like delivering babies. And not a lot of people know about the end of life and death doula side of things, because that is such a strong background and passion that I come from, that I wish people knew more about, because I have seen so many families struggle when they have a family member who is dying, and there's so many things that they're trying to navigate that they don't know how. And it would be really helpful to just have a resource to go to say, where do I get a lawyer? Where do I, come up with, where do I look for different funeral services? What if I don't want a standard funeral service and I want something that I can create? Well, Death Doula can help you do that.
That is very interesting. That's very sweet to do. Do you have any piece of advice for anybody, the viewers, that you'd like to share?
Yeah, just if you're getting into this field, a lot of things that you experience can be pretty jarring and pretty stressful when you're in the situation. So you have to be the type of person that can manage stress well and be on top of your own self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. And that's what this job is.
Righty, thank you so much.
Of course.